In this video we shall talk about data merging. In the first task we have to add 3 new genres to the database without data duplication. After the operation completion, this table should have the following data inside it, and you see that this record is not duplicated. For MySQL we may use replace operator to avoid duplications. It works almost like the insert operator, but it also checks field values. And for these two records there is no duplication, so the data is inserted, but for this record there is duplication. And for such situation the replace operator handles the data that way that there are no duplications in the final dataset. In Microsoft SQL Server we may use merge operator. With such an unusual syntax we may prepare the source dataset. Then we are telling the DBMS to compare genres names from this dataset and from the destination table. And only when those values do not match, the DBMS will perform the insert operation. Also, please notice that merge operator requires this semicolon here, unlike in many other queries. The solution for Oracle looks similar to the solution for Microsoft SQL Server. We also use merge operator here. With this approach we are preparing the source dataset, then we are telling the DBMS to compare genres names from this dataset and from the destination table, and only when those values do not match, the DBMS will perform the insert operation. In the next task we have to imagine we have two databases, and then we have to copy all genres from the source database to our library database. Then in case of primary key duplication we have to add such a suffix to the existing genre's name. Of course, for now we don't have these two databases, but you may easily export the existing library database and then import it with that new name. Please try to achieve the result yourself now. But if you experience difficulties, you may refer to the end of this course where this topic is reviewed. So if your destination database contains the initial dataset and the source database contains the dataset produced by the previous task, after the operation completion you'll get such suffixes for all these records here. Of course, MySQL does not support merge operator. Nevertheless, we may simulate it this way. We use insert select syntax. This select part gets the data from the source database, and then the data is passed to the insert operator. And this condition tells the DBMS that in case of primary key duplication, it has to update the destination data, putting that suffix there. With Microsoft SQL Server we may use merge operator. First we have to allow the explicit data insertion into identity field. Here it is. Then we use merge operator and we are defining the destination and the source tables. And you may easily see that these two tables belong to different databases. Then the DBMS has to compare these values from destination and from source tables. When these values are matched, the DBMS has to update this information, putting that suffix there. When these values are not matched, the database has to insert the information from the source database to the destination one. And then we only have to disable the data insertion into our identity field. For Oracle, the general idea is the same. First we have to disable the trigger that produces new values for our primary auto-incremented key. Then we have to use the merge operator defining the destination and the source tables, and these tables are from the different databases. Then we are telling the DBMS to compare these values from the destination and the source tables. And we have two situations here. When these values match, the DBMS has to update the destination data. When these values do not match, the DBMS has to insert the data from the source database to the destination one. And then we only have to enable that trigger that produces new values for our auto-incremented primary key. One can easily guess that for this solution to work, you have to have access to these both databases. For MySQL and Microsoft SQL that's easy. You just have to provide proper permissions to that user you are logged in with. But for Oracle this is not easy. So here we have to perform some additional actions. We have to create a special object, a database link. Once the link is created, we have to perform these operations we've already seen on the previous slide. Then we have to commit our transaction, and then we have to close that link. But in case this approach fails, we may use another approach to be sure. And then we have to drop that special object we've created at the beginning of this script.